Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the Zoning Commission meeting that was postponed from May the 5th to today because of the COVID. Public comments regarding items on the agenda may be submitted during the meeting by calling into an audio bridge conference call. The phone number and meeting ID and password are posted on the website as of right now. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Oh. Tom Seeger.
Here.
Kenneth Ress.
Here.
Nelwyn McInnes.
Here.
Bernie Willie. Here. Todd Richard.
Here.
Dave Doherty.
Here.
Patrick Fitzmaurice.
Here.
Weldon Crawford.
Here.
Kirk Drum.
Here.
Ron Randolph.
Here.
Paul Barcelona.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Please silence all phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any decision the Commission makes that you disagree with, you have the right to appeal it to the Council. There's appeal cards on the table back at the back where you walked in. There's also speaker cards there, but we have speaker cards up here at the front as well. Public speaking, 10 minutes each side, 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then after you've heard your case, you can exit the building if you wish. Commissioner Randolph for the invocation and Commissioner Willie for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Gracious Father, once again we come to you to say thank you for the many blessings you bestowed in our lives, and as you exhibited your grace and mercy upon each and every one of us and our families. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity once again to come before the citizens of this parish, Lord. We thank you for each commissioner. We thank you for those that's in the audience. And Lord, we ask that you continue to bless our government, Lord. Bless our leaders, our employees, Lord. And gracious Father, we ask that you also put us in mind of what's going on around us. Bless us, protect us, and provide the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that we need to get through this, as we are resilient and we will get through all. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We have President Cooper in the audience with us, and he'd like to say a couple of words. So, Mike, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, I'm here this evening to thank you for your service, that you bring your expertise and your time and dedication to serving St. Tammany Parish, particularly in this time. I can't say it as eloquently as Mr. Randolph did, but we are certainly in challenging times, and thank you for your time and service. I also want to thank the citizens of St. Tammany Parish, those that are here in the audience and those who may be watching on our STPG-TV, Channel 710 Charter, to thank them for their patience during this time. Yes, over the past 3 months, we have had to take a pause and even slow down some of the processes, but we are committed to moving forward and serving our citizens for their needs, whether it be planning, zoning, building permits, any types of needs that they have. Our government, our parish government, is here to serve our citizens. I particularly want to thank the parish departments that are making this possible, this virtual meeting possible to the citizens of St. Tammany who cannot make it here this evening. And that's our Department of Technology, that's primarily represented at this table, our Department of Public Information, which is filming and having the audio visual, along with those that are making that possible. And I want to thank, of course, our staff at Planning and Development that, again, is working hand in hand with the other departments to make this possible for our citizens. And last but not least, I want to thank our legal advisor, Warren Montgomery, District Attorney, represents St. Tammany Parish government and is represented here this evening by Emily Couillon. So this is a great team that we have here. It's a great parish. I hope that our citizens heed the precautions at this time to wash your hands, avoid large social gatherings, keep your social distancing and physical distancing, and stay healthy and stay safe. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. For the commissioners, when you vote and verbally, be sure your mic's on. I think they're all on at this point in time, but we'll also need to know if somebody, depending on which way the motion goes, if it's a negative motion, be sure that the secretary knows that you're voting negatively if the majority of the rest of the commission is voting yes on it. Just try and keep it straight for the public. And I'm also going to ask, be sure your mic is on, and staff, be sure and speak up so that we can hear everyone. All right, staff, do we have any postponing of cases? Helen? Aaron? Postponing of cases?
No, we don't have any postponement.
Well, that's not nice. This is a long agenda. We need to postpone about half of them, I think. Thank you.
Dave.
Oh, okay. Where did I skip it? All right. And in your packet for the commissioners, you had the copy of the minutes from the March 3rd meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. And we need to have a motion and a second in order to adopt.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Who's second by Commissioner Drum? Please vote.
You got a call for it.
You'll have,
You do a voice call or a radio?
yeah, do a
Okay.
roll call.
Tom Seager,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Melwin,
Yes.
Bernie,
Yay.
Todd,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Weldon,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. First item is 2019-1745-ZC. Existing zoning is NC4, Neighborhood and Institutional District. Proposed zoning is HC2. It's 0.47 acres. Petitioner is No Limit Investments, LLC, Casey Cole. Owner is No Limit Investments, LLC, Casey Cole. Parcel located on the west side of Louisiana 1090 north of Brown Switch Road, being lots 39 and 40. Ozone Pine Subdivision, also known as 61027 Louisiana Highway 1090, Slide L, Ward 9, District 9. Staff?
The property is currently surrounded by other properties zone NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District on the north, south, and east sides, and abutting residential neighborhood on the west side. Considering that the requested zoning change to HC2 would allow for much more intensive uses, staff is not in favor of the requested zoning change.
Thank you. Casey Cole or someone here representing? Good evening.
Hi, how you doing? Can I take this off?
You can take it down for right now. You can't, it just doesn't work right with the mic. Go ahead.
Okay, so next door is a gas station, which should be zoned HC2. I don't know
Come a
how
little
it's...
closer to the mic.
Okay, next door to the lot is a gas station, which should be zoned HC2. And then there's a street and another lot that is also zoned HC2. That is very close in proximity to it. We're just looking to have a landscaping company there. It's not going to be heavy industrial, but with the current zoning, you cannot have a landscaping company.
Okay? Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the commission. And I'm going to take the chairman's privilege on this one. I'm familiar with the property. Several years ago, it had a boat repair place there, but my problem with this is it's 0.47 acres. It's just not appropriate in my mind to have an HC2. And yes, I know that the gas station that's right next to it maybe should be zoned HC2, but that was grandfathered in, so there's not anything that we can do. Across the other side of Brown Switch, there is a piece of property undeveloped that at some point in time did get HC2. I just don't feel that this is an appropriate zoning. NC4 fits almost everything that the gentleman wants to do, but he still can't do it under NC4. Any of the other commissioners wish to speak on this? Okay. Seeing none, we need a...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to deny.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to deny. Second. Second by, who's second?
Mr. Willie. Second.
Commissioner Drum. Any further discussion? All right, this is a motion to deny. So a yes vote. Here we go again. But we'll have to come back after this vote and do a revote, right? No? Okay. All right. All right, so we got a motion to deny. Please vote.
Tom,
Yay.
to deny.
That's correct.
Ken,
Yes.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear.
Yes.
Nell,
Yes.
Bernie, yes. Todd,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes?
Patrick,
Yes.
Weldon,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and Paul.
Yes.
The motion to deny has passed.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2020-1769-ZC. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is HC2 Highway Commercial District. The location, parcel located on the north side of US 190, east of Raymond Road, west of Linwood Drive, Lacombe. Ward 4, District 7, 2 acres. And the petitioner is Karen Mathis, and the owner is Karen Mathis. Staff?
The property is currently surrounded by a residential zoning district. For that reason, staff is not in favor of the requested zoning change to HC2 Highway Commercial.
Thank you. Karen Mathis in the audience? Anyone in the audience representing Karen Mathis? All right, anyone in the audience wish to speak either for or against on this? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Move to deny.
Motion by...
I second.
I have a question for
Commissioner-
staff.
Crawford to deny, second by
Dave, I got a question for staff.
Seaver deny.
Who's the second?
Okay,
Nell, are you the second?
so we have a motion and a second. Nell, you want to speak?
No, Ken does.
Ken?
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for staff.
Okay,
Looking at this, you denied, I'm just looking at the concern of the amount of area that abuts the A2. It doesn't change significantly. I mean, it's already some H2 property bordering the A2. The only difference being is the one short leg of that piece of property. It would be additional. Are we more concerned about the overall size of this commercial property, HC2, or the fact that it abuts? Because it doesn't really change the abutment a whole lot.
Well, basically, we're not trying to extend the highway commercial further east, and it's directly abutting residential on the north, the east, and the south side. You know, maybe if the owner would have entertained something a little lighter, then it would have been a better transition. But at this time, we're not trying to just, you know, have more highway commercial zoning along 190.
Okay, thank you.
that answer your question, Ken?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Did we
Tom?
have
We have motion and second to deny.
okay.
Yay.
Ken?
Yes.
Nell? Yes. Bernie?
Yay.
Todd?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes?
Pat?
Yes.
Weldon?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried?
Motion to deny carried.
Carried.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Item 3, 2020-1787-ZC. Existing zone is A1A Suburban District and a manufactured housing overlay and an RO rural overlay. Proposed zoning A2 Suburban District and a manufactured housing overlay and an RO overlay. Parcel located on the southwest corner of Gerald Road and Louisiana 1129, being 19684 Gerald Road, Covington, Ward 2, District 2. It's 2 acres. Petitioners Vicki McClellan, and the owners Vicki McClellan and Lori Ann Mativer. Staff?
The property is currently surrounded by A1A Suburban Residential Zoning Designation. At this time, staff is not in favor of that request, considering that it would allow for a higher density in the area.
Thank you. Vicki McClellan or Lori Ann Mativer, please come to the microphone. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Okay, so
You
There-
are,
I'm Vicki Lee M. Cleland.
okay,
Okay, so there is a 1-acre piece of property to the right of me with a house on it. And I just want to separate the 2 acres and build a house on the back acre, single-family housing.
okay. All right. Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against? Seeing no one, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question of the petitioner.
Vicki
Any of
Lee.
the commissioners wish to comment?
Mr. Weldon has a question.
Okay. Bernie?
Yeah, I have a question of the petitioner.
Put your microphone closer.
They come to the mic.
Vicki Lee,
Come
can you
back
come
to the mic.
Yes, sir.
You're looking to build a house on an acre after you divide the 2 acres?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Is that going to family members, or is just business?
It's for me to live in. I want to sell the house that I'm living in now. If I can separate those 2 acres, sell the house that's in the front, and build a house in the back and live in it.
Okay, and okay, thank you. I got a question of staff as well. According to her survey, she shows 135-foot road frontage. Is that enough, you know, in that zoning?
No, it's not. You know, she will have to come back in front of the planning commission and request a waiver.
So it's 150 feet, isn't it?
That's correct, under the A2.
I move for denial.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Tom,
Yes.
Ken,
No. Yes, excuse me, yes.
Mel,
Yes.
Bernie,
Yay.
Todd,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Weldon.
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
The motion to deny carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1796-ZC. Existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A2 Suburban District plus RO Rural Overlay. Parcel located on the north side of Running Bear Drive, on the east side of Stag Drive, and on the west side of Choctaw Drive, being lots 37, 44, 45, and 46. Choctaw Springs Subdivision, 25525 Running Bear Drive, Lacombe. 5.37 acres. As petitioner is Alexandra Antonovy, and the owner is Alexandra Antonovy and Jerry Antonovy. Council District is 7. Staff?
The objective of the rural overlay is to allow for accessory structures for the conduct of agricultural activities and related businesses. Staff is not opposed to the request, as the large parcel sizes in wooded neighborhood are suitable for the use permitted under the requested zoning classification.
Thank you. One of the Antonovys in the office, in the audience, excuse me. Yes, come to the mic. Good evening.
Good evening. Like staff explained, we have 4 lots and we have a couple of sheep, other animals, and everything is fenced. We will like to build a barn to store the food for the winter and some farm equipment on one of the lots, what doesn't have a house on it.
Okay, thank you.
Who are you?
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor?
He didn't give his name.
Yes, come to the microphone and state your name and address, please. And if you haven't filled out a speaker card, you need to get one and fill it out.
My name's Ronnie Grice. I live at 26001 Little Fawn, which is just north of Alex.
Would you take your mask off, please?
Sure. And I assumed that it was rural to begin with. When I spoke with him, I didn't realize it wasn't. I can see no reason why he shouldn't. He has plenty of land, shouldn't have his animals. He has plenty of land to support the animals. And when I bought my lot, it had an existing barn on it. And I planned on eventually getting some animals myself. I'm not as many as him, but at least a couple. So
Okay.
Sir,
All right. Please get a
Sir,
speaker
can you fill
card. There's
speaker
some
card?
in the back, there's some right here.
A speaker card? Speaker card.
Fill it out and you can give it to some of the staff over here on my right.
there's pens in that bag.
All right, anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
against?
My name is Paul Lerman.
You can take your mask down so that we hear you.
Choctaw Drive,
Can't hear you.
directly across the street from the lot, the way he's trying to build a barn. I sold him that lot. I have a 40 by 40 barn right across the street. I had 7 horses, 7 sheep, and I would like to see it remain country. I don't want it to change. I got a horse there now. I have dogs. I'm not looking to change from anything but suburban agriculture. And I'd appreciate it if you give the gentleman, if he doesn't build a barn, he doesn't have an opportunity to house his animals, which is cruelty to animals. We don't want that. And I thank you very much for listening to me. And I am not against anything he would like to build over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for? Anyone wish to speak against? Seeing no one, I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I move for approval.
A second.
Who
Motion
made the
by
motion?
Fitzmaurice?
Weldon, second by Commissioner Fitzbar. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
Kenneth,
Yes.
Willie,
Yay.
Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1801-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban District and A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A1 Suburban District and A2 Suburban District, and adding a planned unit development overlay. Location, parcel located on the southeast corner of Pinecrest Drive on Louisiana Highway 21, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. It's 221.172 acres. Petitioner is TCE Properties, LLC, Charles Barnett. The owner is TCE Properties, LLC, Charles Barnett. And it's in Council District 1. Staff.
The petitioner is requesting to add the planned unit development overlay to the 221-acre subject property, which will be Chifuncta Club Estates Phase 3, which is in addition to the existing Phase 1 and 2. The site is proposed to be accessed from one entrance off of the existing Pinecrest Drive. The total allowable density permitted for the subject site is 133 single-family residential units, which utilize the existing A1 and A2 zoning designations. The proposed PUD plan shows 133 lots and therefore meets the maximum net density allowable within the PUD development. A minimum of 25% open space is required for the PUD. The petition PUD consists of 221 acres, requiring 55 acres of open space, which the proposed PUD far exceeds. The 2025 future land use plan designates the site to be developed as a planned district with single-family residential uses. The proposed subdivision plat adheres to a large portion of the general standards for the PUD designation, including an environmentally sensitive design and the preservation of natural features of the development site, and as such, staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of TCE Properties, Chifuncta Club Estates. As Aaron noted, the property in question is 221 acres. It abuts the existing Chifuncta Club Estates. To orient you, if you were to turn off of Highway 21 onto Pinecrest Drive, this would be all of the currently vacant property on the right hand or the southern side of Pinecrest Drive. As Chifuncta Club has done in the past, they are very proactive when property on their borders is available to come into commerce. They took the opportunity with what is Functa Club Phase 2, purchased that, developed it themselves. And that is what they're proposing to do with this 221 acres. So tonight I represent the adjacent property owner, which is Functa Club Estates, and is also the proposed developer and the current owner of this property. The underlying zoning, as your staff report noted, is A1 and A2, very low density zones for this part of the parish. We're not proposing to change those underlying zones. All we're proposing is to extend the PUD overlay over them and to present to you a plan that we think is very compatible and suitable with the area, and in particular with the vision of Functa Club Estates. So what you have before you is a unique plan with a unique developer. So that plan, as Aaron noted in your staff comments, has 133 lots on 221 acres. That's 1.6 acres per unit, or about 0.6 units per acre. That is the lowest density that you're going to find in any subdivision in this vicinity that has been developed in the modern era. And I will tell you that the uniqueness of the developer being Functa Club Estates or TCE Properties is allowing that. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, for a developer to come in, acquire this tract, if they did not have the built-in infrastructure available to them that Functa Club has. And that includes a sewer and water system, that includes other infrastructure that is already there. So it is that uniqueness that allows a very low-dense development to be brought before you this evening. Of the 221 acres, 116 acres is preserved in green space. That's about 52% of the site by my calculation. If you look at the plan in your packet, you'll see that there are buffers along all sides. Along Highway 21, not one lot abuts Highway 21. There's a 125-foot green belt along Pinecrest Drive, and even larger buffers to the south. So the developed portion of the site has been clustered and we've been able to maintain those buffer zones. We've also been able to avoid a very large percentage of the wetlands on that site. So the wetlands, by and large, there are some minor fingers that will need to be permitted for crossings and so forth, but the vast majority of those wetlands are being preserved in the plan that is before you. Obviously, with any PUD, we will have central utilities, and as I just noted, we'll connect to the utility system that is presently serving Functa Club Estates. As for the amenities, this development or this phase will immediately enjoy access to all of the amenities that are in the other phases of Functa Club Estates. However, we will also be adding an additional pocket park and playground area. And for those of you who are familiar with Functa Club Estates and historically Functa Club Estates, you will remember that there was a barn at the front of the development for many, many years. That barn burned down some time ago, but part of the amenity package for this phase is to reestablish that barn as an open-air facility, but that can hold functions, have outdoor activities, and of course that barn is immediately adjacent to this parcel. So there will be ample amenities there. So I'll conclude by simply reminding you of the uniqueness of the plan that's before you, the very low density, the clustering, reserving large borders of buffers along all sides. As Aaron also noted, this plan meets all of the objectives of the PUD overlay. So we would respectfully request your approval this evening, extending the PUD overlay to this A1 and A2 parcel in accordance with the plan that's in your package. And I'll be happy to answer any questions the commissioners might have at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
We have a speaker card from a David Delantier. That's probably not right, but...
Duplanche.
Duplanche, okay.
So I'm one of the 533 owners of this property. This property is very unique. I was on the board a couple of years ago and the opportunity came to buy this property. And first of all, let me say, I live on Cardinal Road in the Estates. And I'm very much in favor of what has been said today. we have bought this property to do exactly what Mr. Morone said, further the interests of the residents of this neighborhood. A unique thing happened is we actually put it to the people of the neighborhood, and they agreed to go into debt to buy this property to do exactly what we're doing here. And they've come up with a lot of creative things to mold this property into the existing Chifuncta property. I think everything on the plat is very good as to what Mr. Morone said. I think there's a few issues that are going to have to get dealt with regard to the sensitive swamp area that has come into existence. But that'll come through other permits that'll have to be obtained by the estates. But needless to say, I think this is a very good idea for this property, and it's a great thing that Chifuncta is doing this. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Seeing no one, we'll go to against. I have a card from Todd Gibson. Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening. Todd Gibson, 5 Brady Island Lane, Madisonville. I appreciate the PUD. What I'm looking at here is 133 additional homes and approximately 300 to 400 more cars trying to enter and exit Highway 21, which is already congested. I see a big drainage problem. Arbor Walk, the subdivision across from Highway 21, drains directly into this proposed PUD. Also, my home in our neighborhood, Brady Island, which is south of this proposed PUD, I believe will be negatively impacted with drainage. However, I'm not opposed to having a PUD with maybe a little bit more compatible, maybe something like 3-acre lots, just like Brady Island has. I understand Chifuncta has, a certain amount of lots, but lot sizes, and this looks like it's going to be half-acre from what I'm looking at. I don't see the 1-acre lots. Maybe they're not shown on this particular drawing, but I don't see any positive impact to traffic or drainage by developing this. And I'll yield the rest of my time to anyone else that wants to speak against this.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak against? All right, we'll go to rebuttal. Okay. I need to get a speaker card from you, too.
I'd cross my name off the card, but you can put it back on. Gary Kopp, I'm at 11 River Cypress Lane in Brady Island. On the plans, they showed these detention ponds, and they're in the swamp. I don't really know what purpose that serves. And they're going to have to dig those out, and they'll probably need a 10-foot retaining wall to keep the water out when it floods. It seems like every year a storm comes, Brady Island gets more and more water into our yards, and we don't want to see this increase it any. And if they dig these detention ponds, I don't know how they're going to maintain them, because they're all in the swamp behind the houses. I've not seen any kind of study that's going to say where's all this water going to go when a hurricane or heavy rain comes. And also the other problem is the river backs up, as everybody knows that lives there, and it sends the water into the yards pretty high. Just a storm a week or two ago sent it up, 40 or 50 feet into my yard, and Todd's yard also, which is not abnormal, but it seems to get worse every year, just like with by Hannon High School flooding the other day. That usually doesn't happen. So I'd like to see some kind of study showing where's this water going to go. So
Okay.
that's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? We'll go to rebuttal. Ms. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few points on rebuttal. Obviously, what we're here tonight about is the land use. And the land use of a PUD overlay with an A1 and A2 underlying zoning, which exists today, I would submit to you is about as benign as you will ever see in this area. Now, that is not meant to minimize the concerns that the two gentlemen from Brady Island brought up. They are legitimate concerns, and there was a suggestion that there should be a study, and of course there will be a study. This is a multi-phase process, which you're aware of. Tonight is about land use. If we proceed to this step, then we enter into the planning phase, where what we have to do is to study that. We have to study where do the retention ponds have to be? How will they be constructed? Where will the water go? How will we comply with your ordinances? With regards to traffic, there will have to be a traffic study done that will study the intersections that are mandated by the parish engineers. All of that comes at a later date. All of those are very legitimate questions, questions that we ourselves discuss internally at this early stage, knowing that we'll have to address them before we can get a work order to do anything, to move a spoonful of dirt out there. But again, that's at a later stage. Very good comments, very good questions, legitimate questions for this property, in this location, with this plan. And we're confident that we'll be able to answer those questions, but we need to be able to get the data to do that. And we will be doing a hydrological study if and when we get to the preliminary stage. And of course, as I said, we'll have to have a traffic impact analysis that will be done that will detail what the traffic impacts will be. But I would point out to you again that whether we're talking about traffic or we're talking about drainage, you've got an existing A1 and A2 zone there. That is extremely low density, which means that is extremely low impact. Not no impact, but it is very low impact. And so you have before you a plan that, particularly with regards to Brady Island, look at the plan and look at the buffers that are off the Brady Island property line. They are significant. There are no lots that abut that property line. There's only one cul-de-sac that even comes close to it. There is significant preservation that has been done along the south side of this parcel, which is where we meet Brady Island. We know that that ground is sensitive out there. And so we want to preserve that, and that's what you see on your plan. We have taken steps to do that. With all of the green space, over 100 acres of green space, I feel certain that we will be able to engineer it to meet your guidelines and your ordinances when the time comes. We just asked for your positive recommendation tonight on the land use alone so that we have the opportunity to come back and present the studies and the data to address these other issues. Thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Roan. The two gentlemen that spoke against, do you have any rebuttal?
Todd Gibson, 5 Brady Island. Again, I'm looking at this plot, I'm seeing a lot of half-acre lots. You know, if what he said in his, opening statement was 1-acre lots, I don't see a lot of them, unless my math's wrong, and it could be. I just think that's it's incompatible with Brady Island having 3-acre lots. And I understand you already have an A2, this is zoned for A2, but I would request that y'all take a look at this PUD and see if you can do anything to minimize and even lower that density. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the other gentleman have anything? Rebuttal? Okay. All right. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Do we have a commissioner that wishes to speak on it?
Mr. Chairman?
Now?
I too, Mr. Marone, feel that this is one of the premier subdivisions, the Tchefuncte Estates, that we have in St. Tammany. And I'm happy to see the larger lots. But I do have some comments and questions, and it reiterates in part what has already been said, is this is very similar to Brady Island. There's a major swamp to the south and a major drain on the west side. So it's more like a peninsula. rather than an island. It is very near the Tchefuncte River, where it is a major river. And it is at the edge of this very extensive cypress swamp in the floodplain. So my concern is the swamp, according to LIDAR that was provided to me by staff, the swamp elevation is around 2 feet. And the edge, the location on the topo map where these houses are going to be placed is 4 feet. That's coastal zone. I'm saying approximately 4 feet according to the LIDAR. I'm really concerned about particularly the outer homes to the south and to the west. There's also a major, that drain to the west not only drains Arbor Walk, it drains the Natchez Trace subdivision to the north, and a pretty extensive amount of acres in a small watershed to the northwest that's largely undeveloped. So that drainage, the homes near that drainage are of a concern. So one additional comment is that I too noticed the detention ponds at the edge of the swamp. You might as well just let it drain in the swamp. There were a few acres that are wetlands in the north central part of the project, and I thought, well, maybe it seems like that would be a good location for a detention pond rather than on the southern edge of the property in a swamp or very near the swamp. And again, I also had concerns about Brady Island. Would there be any impacts? So my main point is that we all know storm surges stop the Tchefuncte River from draining into Lake Pontchartrain. We all know that flooding is increasing along our lakefront. Madisonville, historic homes that never flooded are flooding now. Mandeville, we have regular floods just with a high wind from the southeast. So we really have to think about our changing environment. We have sea level rise going on, and our lake is rising. It's documented in the Coastal Master Plan. So we need to think down the road. So what I'm asking is, if this project comes back to planning and you're presenting a drainage plan, I want to see some freeboard, significant freeboard of those homes that may flood. If you just go with the 100-year flood zone, the minimum that FEMA requires, you're not doing the citizens a service. These homes will flood, and it will be documented in these meetings that you've been made aware of that. I just ask that you think of the people that you're building for and the people that are the neighbors when you design not just a drainage plan, but you have to design a flood plan. And let's be smart.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, I appreciate your comments. And let me just try to address a few. First of all, there is not one part of this project, the developed site, none, that is below the 5-foot contour. So I don't know what the LIDAR said, but I know that we took great care before coming to this meeting, before submitting that plan, to make sure that everything that we are developing is above the 5-foot contour. The home sites are at average elevation of 17. So we are very cognizant of what you just mentioned, Ms. McGinnis, and we appreciate those comments. As to the detention ponds, we are obligated at this early stage on the PUD plan to show the uses of the property. right? One of the uses would be most likely detention ponds. So we show those ponds, knowing full well that once we get the engineering and the hydrology back, the exact location, the size, those may change. There may not be ponds, to your point. We're in the lower third of the basin, right? So there may not be ponds. But to try to give a clear representation of the plan, we can't not show a pond because that would not so much on this plan because we've got 116 acres of green space. But if we had not shown that it would be like not showing roadways, right? That's a component that typically, not every time, but typically you have to have. So I urge you not to get hung up on the location or the size of those until we have the opportunity to do the study that tells us, should we have ponds? Where should they be located? How should they be constructed? All of that will come at a later date. And I would simply end by saying this. The developers of this site are not developing and leaving. They live next to it. They're going to live in it. Nobody cares more about the people that are going to be living in this development than the people that are developing it. I said in the very beginning of my comments, you have a unique case here. And very rarely is it that the subdivision next door to a property that goes up for sale buys it and develops it for its own. That's what's happening here. So the sensitivities are heightened, especially those that you mentioned. So we take those to heart and we hear what you're saying, and if we're fortunate enough to come back at preliminary, we will do our best to address those concerns at that time.
Does that answer your questions, Dale?
At this time, I will ask you to just please consider the elevation of these homes. And if you achieve that elevation with fill, you may be affecting the people to the south. So minimal fill, maximum height. Thanks.
Okay, any of the other commissioners have any comments for Mr. Morone?
I've got one comment, but this is more for staff. If this would move forward, again, overall, the density, we don't see too many like this. So it's a nice look for this area, I think. I feel better about it. I did have concerns about the drainage issue. I think we've talked enough about that to wait to see what comes. But on the traffic side of it, you know, the outlets for here are I-12 and the Madisonville Bridge. So in the end, when the areas that we've already got concerns with in the parish, you know, when you end up getting on 21, well, if you're going anywhere, you're probably going to some heavy traffic areas already. So I would ask staff when they ask for if we go forward, that if they do a traffic study, that we look a little bit beyond just the immediate area coming out onto 21, because I don't think that's going to tell us a whole lot. I think we have to look further to the troubled areas, that we got to, just like we're thinking of drainage more globally, a little bigger area because the effects net across the parish. Everything's a sum game here when we get all done. I think we need to look a little further than just that. So I would ask staff to just keep that in mind when we do that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Morone.
Mr. Willie, is that? You have some comments, Bernie?
Paul, just look at the map. The access is only through Pinecrest,
Correct.
and so there won't be any connection to the potential NC4 zoning, proposed NC4 zoning in the front,
No.
either by roadway or by walk path.
No, there's not proposed to be any connectivity at this point between them. Certainly not, absolutely not by vehicles.
Okay. With that said, I move for approval. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Willies, second by Commissioner Seeger.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick comment. Mr. Morone and the developers, I just wanted to say it's nice to see someone coming here working with the underlying zoning and sticking with the density that's already in place instead of coming and trying to ask for a more dense situation. So we don't see that very much. This looks like a good PUD to start with. The only comment that I would have when you come back for planning is your entranceway might want to look at making that a little wider, especially to the first street. But aside from that, it looks okay to me. But I just like that y'all are working with the existing zoning in place, the density in place.
Who seconded that motion?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
To approve. Seeger.
Yay.
Ref.
Yes.
McInnes.
Yes.
Willie.
Yay.
Richard.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes?
Fitzmaurice.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Drum.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1802-ZC. Existing zoning is A2, Suburban District. Proposed zoning is NC4, Institutional District. The location, parcel located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 21, south of Pinecrest Drive, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. It's 21.479 acres. The petitioner's TCE Properties LLC, Charles Barnett, and the owner is TCE Properties LLC, Charles Barnett. Council district is 1. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan designates the site to be developed with single-family residential uses and conservation areas. The petitioner is requesting to rezone 21.479 acres from A2 Suburban District to NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. The purpose of the Neighborhood Institutional District is to allow for commercial uses adjacent to residential zoning designations. The petition site is located across from properties zoned NC4 and the Arbor Walk Professional Center PUD, which also has commercial uses. Note that the future commercial development of the site will be subject to the Highway 21 Plan Corridor overlay requirements, and as such, staff is not opposed to the request.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone again. Same group, same part of the same tract of property, and a lot of the same reasons behind the acquisition and the purchase. For this 21 acres, all of this fronts Highway 21, and since it fronts Highway 21, the developers, the residents in Chivunka Club Estates wanted the opportunity to offer some office and limited retail type use. There's been some interest expressed from residents within Chivunka that might want to have an office or a small retail use there, but it certainly would not be exclusive to that. The idea would be to utilize the highway frontage for commercial. As you know, Highway 21 is one of the major north-south corridors on the west side of St. Tammany Parish. And if you ride up and down Highway 21, if you start at the interstate, obviously you have a much more intense zoning there. But as you get to this area, stepping down, as the staff report notes, this 21 acres is immediately across on the south end from existing NC4, and on the north end across from Arbor Walk Commercial Park, which is a variety of offices and similar type uses that you might see in NC4. So we think that this is an appropriate and compatible use given its frontage along the highway, given the other zoning and uses that are in the area, and also given the step-down approach from the much more intense zones and uses you have to our north along along I-12, excuse me. So we would respectfully request your approval of NC4 for this 21 acres along Highway 21. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? I have a card from Todd Gibson, who wishes to speak against.
Todd Gibson, 5 Brady Island, Madisonville, Louisiana. Again, I think NC4 is a little too open. I'd like to see this restricted to either an NC1 or a PUD. I like what Arbor Walk is. Arbor Walk Professional Center, if that's what they're wanting to do, that's what they should zone it for. I'm not in favor of just an open, NC4. We've already got a Chinese massage parlor across the street. We don't need another one. Not to say that that's going to be developed there, but there would be nothing to keep them from doing that. Again, density. I also would like to know what they plan to do with the tree line, and does it meet the scenic Highway 21 overlay?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? We'll go to rebuttal, Mr. Perone.
Just briefly, if you look at the map, you'll see that there's NC4 there. That's what's around it. That's the logical step down from the more intense zonings to our north. There is no NC1. NC4 is what's there. I think that is specific enough. The staff noted that the other NC4 in the area. So we'd respectfully request your approval. It's compatible with the area, consistent with what's there and the zoning that's in place next to us. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gibson, you have any further comment? Okay. I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Fitzmaurice to approve, seconded by Commissioner Willie. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Who's requested?
Oh, Nell?
Seeger?
Yes. Wait, hold on.
oh, wait a minute.
We couldn't tell who asked.
I have a comment. I was looking to be recognized by the chairman. Again, Mr. Marone, part of that drainage to the west is on this property. And if a significant amount of fill in the wetlands occurs, that is going to further threaten those homes on the previous project we just talked about and maybe impact Arbor Walk and Natchez Trace to the north. So I just want to say it for the record. Be careful in the design.
Thank you. Paul, I had
Thank
a
you.
couple of questions. Are y'all going to put an interior roadway in on this development so that you don't have a bunch of highway cuts? I don't think DOTD would let you have it anyway, but
There is not any plan to have internal access to this parcel. There are some sensitive areas between the developed, the PUD area and this parcel that really wouldn't be advisable to have vehicular connections there. So the intent would be that whatever access this parcel has, it would be off of Highway 21. Now, there is no plan at this point for subdividing that or exactly how that track will ultimately come into commerce. So it very well could be that there would be one curb cut that would access numerous parcels, but that would come at a later stage. We really haven't
Right.
gotten there on this. This is very preliminary.
it's something y'all haven't given any thought to at this
Yes,
point?
not at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Please vote.
The motion is to approve. Mr. Seeger is a yay. Rest?
Yes.
McInnes?
Yes.
Willie?
Yay.
Richard?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Barcelona?
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1809, ZC, existing zonings A2, suburban district with an RO rural overlay. Proposed zoning is PF1, public facilities district. Location, parcel located on the west side of Louisiana Highway 434 and the east side of Vorstich Road, being 66110 Vorstich Road, Lacombe. Ward 6 and 7, District 11, it's 3 acres. Tim Moreau is petitioner, owner is Pro Multi, Tim Moreau. Council District 11. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan designates the site to be developed with residential uses that vary in site design and density. The applicant is requesting to rezone 3 acres from A2 Suburban District and Rural Overlay to the PF1 Public Facilities District, which is to allow for the location of uses that provide institutional establishments to the public. The objective of the request is to allow the existing church to become a conforming use under the current Unified Development Code, and as such, staff does not object to the request.
Thank you. Is Mr. Moreau in the audience? Good evening.
Good evening. Timothy Morrow, M-O-R-E-A-U. Simply, we've been working with Mr. Stefancic in the council, as well as with the recommendations of the planning, just for a more appropriate zoning for the church. We plan to have, in the future, a community center and some other things that need to get permitted, and the current zoning is problematic for us, and we just want to try to get a more appropriate zoning for the property.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Yes, sir. Come state your name. And if you haven't filled out a speaker card, please do so.
Hi, I'm Stephen Amato, 230 Dummy Line in Madisonville. This community center that we're planning is actually really important for our group and our parish. It's we probably have like 55, 60 young kids, and so it's a very young, very busy activity. And we just, there is 434 behind us, very close, and so we actually want to do this for safety, be able to help people after mass. We want to be able to kind of contain them in this community center and fence it off so that it's safer for them. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Yes, sir. Fill out a speaker card, too.
Up here.
After, yeah. Matthew Bio, live in Mandeville. I'm building a home about 2 miles from this location, and we go to this church. I have 5 children. The church provides great services for us. We're very much looking forward to building this new building and expanding from there, so getting an approval from y'all would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Seeger?
Yay.
Yes?
Yes.
McInnes?
Yes.
Willie?
Yay.
Bouchard?
Yes.
Doherty?
Yes.
Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes.
Randolph?
Yes.
Barcelona?
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2020-1810 ZC, existing zonings A3 Suburban District and NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. Proposed zoning is NC1 Professional Office District, partial located on the northwest corner of Canal Street and Louisiana Highway 1090, being lots 1 and 2, square 13, Ozone Pines subdivision, Slide L. It's 0.35 acres. The petitioner is Kevin Davis, and the owner is Leon Lowe and Sons, Toby Lowe. Council district is 9. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan designates the site to be developed with residential uses that vary in site design and density. The subject property consists of 2 lots within the Ozone Pines subdivision, both of which are undeveloped. The first lot, which is Lot 1, is bounded by Canal and Louisiana Highway 1090 and is zoned NC4. Lot 2 is facing Canal and is split zone both A3 and NC4. The request to rezone both lots to NC1 will decrease the allowable intensity of uses on Lot 1 and increase the allowable intensity of uses on part of Lot 2. The purpose of the NC1 Professional Office District is to provide for the location of commercial uses adjacent to residential zoning designations.
Thank you.
As such, staff does not object to the request for the NC1 Professional Office District.
All right, Kevin Davis, are you in the audience? Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. We're requesting this change to put a small professional office in the NC4, which is a higher zoning classification. We can't put that. We could put a church, or we could put a synagogue, but we can't put a small office building. So that's our request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against? I'll close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Move approval.
To approve.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Either way.
Commissioner Randolph.
I can be your first or your second, whichever one you prefer.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmore.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
Seeger.
Yay.
Rest.
Yes.
Kenneth.
Yes.
Lilly.
Yay.
Bouchard.
Yes.
Doherty.
Yes.
Fitzmaurice.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Drum.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
Motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Todd, I'm gonna let you handle the next couple.
Okay, next on the agenda, case number 9, 2020-1811-ZC. The existing zoning A1 Suburban District and MHO Manufactured Housing Overlay. Proposed zoning A1A Suburban District and Manufactured Housing Overlay. The parcel is located on the south side of Fitzgerald Church Road, Covington, Ward 2, District 6. It's 3.03 acres. The petitioner is Randall Tyrone Keating, and the owner is Dottie Keating, Council District 6. Staff?
Staff is not in favor of the request, considering that the property is surrounded on all sides by A1 suburban zoning. Note that the reason for the request is to allow for the property to be subdivided from a larger tract of land.
Thank you. Is a petitioner here? Please come forward. Pull down your mask so we can hear you and state your name and address.
Hello. My name's Randall Keating. I live at 79300 Fitzgerald Church Road. The property that we're looking at is actually part of my original father's property, which he had given all the kids part of it before. This is the last 10 acres that belongs to my mama. She's looking to divide it up between the kids as inheritance. 3 of the pieces of property are actually attached to the other family members. Mine is actually attached to the catty corner at the curve. And since it's less than 5 acres, that's why we're here to get it rezoned so that she can get it rezoned to do for inheritance and break it up before she dies. She's 90, so.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Yes, yes, sir.
My name's Rodney Keating. I'm 79205. I live right to the north of where this piece of property is. In reference to this is the vision of my mom's property. She's 90 years old, and with the coronavirus, she's just kind of concerned that it needs to be transferred in the rest of our kids' names. On the front page, it talks about all the land around it. Well, that little square is right in the middle of my dad's 100 acres. The only reason that when it was divided up, there's 4 parcels. 3 of them connect with the rest of us. This one, my little brother has 20 acres. It meets in the corner here, but his is right up here. So it really doesn't connect, so we couldn't just make it, like for the rest of us, it's 23 acres. This one, it doesn't just connect completely like the other 3 parcels. So that's what we're doing. We're not making a smaller piece, actually, we're just making 4 larger pieces. So
Fair enough. Does anyone else wish to speak for? Is anyone that wish to speak against this matter? You can get a speaker card right here, sir. Thank you. Okay, seeing none in the audience, I'll go ahead and close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commissioners.
Mr. Keating, come back to the mic, please.
Gentleman over here.
sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
That's all right.
So it's my understanding that you're acting as power of attorney for your mother's estate, and this property is not yours, it's going to be given to your brother as part of inheritance. Thank you. The Keating family came over on the Shamrock in the early 1800s and homesteaded this area, and I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Seeger, second by Commissioner Willie. Any further discussion? We'll call for the vote.
Seeger.
Yes.
Rest.
Yes.
McInnes.
Yes.
Willie.
Yay.
Richard.
Yay.
Doherty. Fitzmaurice.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Drum.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
All right, next item is 1812. Todd?
Yes, you're correct. Number 10.
2020-1812-CC. Existing zoning is A4 single-family residential district and PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay. Proposed zoning is A4 single-family residential. Location parcel located on the north side of Harrison Avenue, west of Abita River Drive, Covington, Ward 2, District 3. It's 0.53 acres. The petitioner is Kelly McHugh. The owner is Abita River Park, LLC, Council District 3. Staff?
The property in question is currently located within the Abita Ridge Phase 1 subdivision. The applicant is requesting to remove the property from the PUD overlay, and it would allow to retain the A4 single-family residential zoning for that particular site, and staff doesn't have any objection to this request.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Paul Marone again, this time on behalf of Abita River Park LLC. The request to amend the PUD to remove this track is really to clean up an error that we made on the front end. If you notice in your packet, you will see that there is an existing single-family home on this site. That site was never intended to be part of the development of the PUD. It's been there for a long time. It's got somebody residing in it, and it was meant to be a standalone parcel. But the legal description, when the PUD was originally put in place, included that, was within the boundaries of that description. So we're asking to remove the PUD overlay from the track so that it can continue to be a standalone track for the single-family residence that's there and has been there for many years. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but we would respectfully request your approval for a major amendment of the PUD to clean up that error on our part.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice,
Second.
second by Commissioner Steed.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Any further discussion?
Yes, sir. This question is probably to Paul first. Did we have a zoning change as well to make this PUD happen? In other words, what was this property before? Was it an A4 back before we started this process? If not, should we put it back the way it was?
That's a good question, and I don't,
And I don't mean to, I guess maybe I can ask staff.
I don't know, I don't recall.
It was A2 Suburban.
Okay.
So this property was probably zoned in connection with the PUD, a PUD overlay, unbeknownst to this owner. And my question is, do we put it back like it was? Will A4 suffice on the size of this property? Will it matter?
It's a 0.5 acre tract, and an A2 would require a 1 acre minimum, I believe.
Yeah, I think here the objective is to go back to the residential zoning that should go to A2 or A4.
All right, I guess I can ask, I might have to put you on the spot, legal. Can we do that? Can we do that without the owner being
Well,
present?
the applicant is the owner. The applicant is the owner.
Okay. And you're representing the applicant
Correct.
as well as the PUD? Or you're representing the applicant on behalf of
So the
mistake?
the owner of the PUD is the owner of this tract.
Okay.
When the developer acquired the entire tract, this was part of it. But because that existing home was over there, it had a tenant in it, it was never intended to be part of the PUD itself, but our error included it within that. And so that tenant now would like to acquire the property that he's been renting, and we can't sell it to him because it's been included within the PUD. So we would have to, the alternative, I think, would be that we would have to go through preliminary and final on this 0.5 acre parcel to create a parcel of record to be able to sell to him since it's within the PUD, which didn't seem to make sense.
Well, we're not trying to complicate, we're just trying to correct an
our
error, but I just want to make sure we correct it correctly.
Agreed.
So, do we have any recommendations? Do we go back to the original underlying zoning?
If the zoning was changed to A4 and then the PUD laid on it,
Right.
it's A4.
Well, except that the applicant's asking for a different zoning.
Right,
I mean, the owner's asking for the zoning change.
Right.
No, the underlying zoning, we're asking to just stay the same. We just need to take the PUD overlay
Correct.
off of that 0.53 acres.
So it'll be a conforming property? The existing lot, the small lot now will be a conforming lot at A4?
It will conform under A4, that's correct.
Okay, that answers the question, and thank you.
Sorry for the confusion.
Okay. Any further discussion? We got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Seeger.
Yes.
Rest.
Yes.
McInnes.
Yes.
Willie.
Yay.
Bouchard.
Yes.
Yes.
Doherty. Fitzmaurice.
Yes.
Crawford.
Yes.
Drum.
Yes.
Randolph.
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1813-ZC. Existing zoning is A2. Proposed zoning is A2. Suburban district and manufactured housing overlay. Parcel located on the south side of Titus Smith Road, east of Old Keller Road, Lacombe, Ward 6, District 11. It's 0.85 acres. Petitioners Beverly and Donald Hayes. The owner is Beverly and Donald Hayes. Council district is 11. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan designates the site to be developed with a variety of residential uses. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request.
Thank you. Are the Hayes here? You, Mr. Hayes? Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening, members of the commission. I'm petitioning to change this for manufactured housing overlay so that we have better options to build a house for my youngest son on that property. There's two parcels I own. I inherited one parcel from my grandmother, and I purchased this parcel from my neighbor. we would like, he's starting his own family, and we would like to set him up with affordable housing, especially take care of my wife and myself because of we're getting up in age and our health is not too good.
All right. Do you have any other comments?
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? We did receive a letter from one of your neighbors, a Mike O'Brien. You familiar with Mr. O'Brien? And basically, he's asking you to clean the property up. Apparently, there's some things that need to be done to the property, and he's asking it. Pardon me? Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of it. All right.
May I
I'm
ask
gonna bring
a
it
que-
back. Yeah.
May I ask a question, please? Yes, sir. Is this going to be are you considering putting a stick house or mobile or manufactured home?
We're looking at all our options right now with the way that the economy is going right now. We're trying to see what we can afford, and if all possible, we'd like to build either a prefab home or a stick house. You know, it's just what he can afford. Him and his wife can afford.
And what type of housing is around you? I think I went there today. I think I went to the right place today, and all I saw were stick homes.
No, there's a mobile home right down the street from me, about 200 feet, at my neighbor's house. There's a stick home right across the street from me, and there's a old log cabin down Old Keller Road that's been there for, let's see, I'm 66, and it's been there since the 40s, from what I understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Well,
It's a question for staff. Helen, at less than an acre, at .85 acres, A2, would this be conforming use if he was to put a trailer on this lot?
This is an existing parcel of land. He's not trying to subdivide it. This is what he owns, if I'm not mistaken.
I see.
I own a .3 something acre plot right next to this. This is a plot that I bought.
come to the mic.
This is a plot that I bought separate from the plot that I inherited from my grandmother.
Okay, I was out there and there was a very nice house next door to it, and then I believe there was like a shed with school bus shed on the other side. Is that your property?
The one, I have my existing structure that was my grandmother's house right in front of my house, and then I have a shed right behind my house.
Okay, just trying to make sure I saw the right thing. I understand the objection that Mr. O'Brien sent in. You know, apparently that was his house next door, and he obviously can't be here this evening. No further comments at this time.
Okay. Any of the rest of the commissioners have any comment? We need a motion.
I make a motion to deny.
Who made the motion? Kirk. Motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Willie? Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie,
Yay.
Richard,
Yes.
Yes.
Doherty, Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to deny carries.
You can appeal it.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1814-ZC. Existing zoning is HC1 Highway Commercial District and A4 Single Family Residential District. Proposed zoning is HC2A Commercial District. The location parcel located on the south side of Meadowbrook Boulevard, east of US Highway 190, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 5. It's 12.01 acres. Petitioners Jones Fussell, LLP, Paul Marone, owners Pelican Athletic Club, LLC, Council District 5. Staff?
The 12 acre is currently developed with an health club facility. While an health club facility is permitted under the HC1 zoning designation, the existing building exceeds 20,000 square feet. Staff is not opposed to the request. However, we'd like to recommend that the rezoning be modified to only include the existing building and the area where the future expansion would be located.
Mr. Morone. Helen, you finished? Okay, I thought you was. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone, on behalf of the Pelican Athletic Club. This just over 12 acres is the home of what has been the Pelican Athletic Club, or PAC, since about 1994, 1995. We're requesting HC2A because that is the zoning that fits the current use and the historical use of the property. The purpose of the request is simply to bring the zoning into compliance with what the use is and has always been. There's no plans to change the use in any way, but as we are here tonight talking about this, the Pelican Athletic Club is a non-conforming use, which brings some very real problems and concerns that I'll outline in a moment. But I think it's important to understand the history about where we were and how we got here, so that maybe you have a little bit better background on the request. The PAC property, for those of you who haven't been out there before, consists of a clubhouse that has workout equipment, workout and exercise rooms, etc. There's a speed and performance center, there's a free weight room, there's a mind and body studio, there are parking lots, swimming pools, tennis courts, along with other outdoor activities. It is a significant facility that required significant investment to get it to the way it is. The clubhouse facility, the speed and performance center, the free weight room, and the mind and body studio alone are approximately 60,000 square feet. The vast majority of that was built in 1994 and 1995. There were two minor additions, one in 1996 and then another one in 2000. So right now, those facilities far exceed the maximum that would be allowable on the track. When the facilities were built, the majority of the property, the vast majority of the property was zoned C1. And at that time, C1 allowed parks and playgrounds, sports and gymnasiums, and athletic fields. And under the permitted conditional use did not have any size requirements. So at that point in time, the site and all of its uses were legal, if you will. Well, as you all know, in 2008 and 2009, the parish embarked upon a comprehensive rezoning of the entire parish, where every parcel of property was rezoned. Not only was every parcel of property rezoned, but the old zoning ordinance 523 was discarded and a new zoning ordinance, the Unified Development Code, was put in place. When that happened, this property was rezoned to HC1 and NC4, A4, because the old categories didn't exist anymore under the new code. The Unified Development Code has many more zones. It's stratified with very specific uses. So what happened was, as a result of that, we're in a zone that allows perhaps our uses, but certainly doesn't allow the size of the facilities that we have. So we're non-conforming. Well, what does non-conforming mean? Some people might say, well, look, you're fine, you're there, you're operating, the parish isn't shutting you down. But let me tell you what non-conforming use means. First, no expansion of the building without a demonstrated hardship. Even if you can demonstrate the hardship, the maximum expansion you could have would be 25%. A non-conforming use cannot be expanded at all or intensified. If the building and facilities are closed for 6 months, now keep that in mind in light of what we've just been through the last 3 months, then you can't reopen. That's significant. If the building is damaged beyond 50% of its value, you can't rebuild it. So my client, for many, many years, has expended a great deal of capital into a very, very fine facility. And a facility that we don't intend to change the uses of. Now, over time, the uses, the health care, the health and fitness centers do change some. I mean, if in 1994 you would have been told there was going to be a mind and body studio, you'd have probably said, well, what is that? Well, I don't know what that is today, but it's something that was needed and that is utilized. So all of that capital has been put in place. And so when my client goes to refinance, my client goes to insure, my client goes to have his property appraised, these issues all come up and create real, tangible problems. So much so that we're here tonight requesting to put the zoning in place so that it fits our use, the use that we've had since 1994, 1995. Now, the staff has recommended that we only rezone where the buildings are. We recognize those concerns, and we've met and talked with Councilman Toledano extensively about this. And what we would ask you to consider is not just rezoning where the buildings are, because it's important to us that we have a consistent zoning throughout the property. Most of the property is developed now. We don't necessarily know 5 years from now, 10 years from now, exactly where and what would need to be done to keep that facility on the cutting edge and where it is today. So I believe one of staff's concern is, well, going to HC2, there are going to be some uses that, while maybe what you're doing there, Mr. Marone, is fine, there are some things that come along with HC2 that are maybe not fine in that location. We understand. We don't have any quibble with that whatsoever. In our discussions with Council Toledano, though, what we have talked with him about, what he is supportive of, and what we are working forward with him, is limiting those uses, is taking the uses, whether it be in HC1, which we actually are now on a portion of the property, HC2 and HC2A, and going through and deed restricting those properties out. We have submitted a list to Councilman Toledano of about 15 or 16 uses in those categories that we are prepared to restrict before the zoning ordinance, if recommended by this commission, and if he were to pass the zoning ordinance to change the zoning, there would be a deed restriction in place that would prevent any of those uses. He said that it was perfectly fine for me to represent to you this evening those discussions, that he has the list, he is reviewing, and then he will get back with us if that list needs to be modified at all. So we believe that we have a stopgap to address perhaps what I believe the concern of the staff was, is these uses that we don't intend that could find their way onto the property if we don't do something like limit where the zoning is or put these deed restrictions in place. And we believe that the deed restriction is the better alternative to addressing that concern. It's long-winded. It's a long story to give you unpack. But again, we're not here asking to change the zoning to change the use. The use is there, has been there, and will continue to be there. We're simply asking for the zoning to meet and be consistent with that use so that we are a fully compliant site again, so that we don't have the problems of the non-conforming use that I explained to you a little earlier. Appreciate your consideration this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against? Paul, we had an email come in, looks like April the 27th, from Parish, and I was just handed to me this evening. I don't know if y'all got a copy of it and had an opportunity to read it and have anything, but that little small piece of A4, I don't know what you'd put there. I mean, it's small. But anyway, I want you to be aware of the objection. If you've read it and you want to respond to it, please do so.
Yeah, I believe that I've seen the email. I did receive some emails from Mr. Parish, and as I recall, he was concerned about the HC2 zoning, and his belief was you're non-conforming, you're fine, you're not going to get shut down. But as I've demonstrated, as I have tried to demonstrate, explaining to you the practical and real hardships that the non-conforming status has, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Parish that that is a legitimate way to continue to operate out there with facilities such as this. So we would respectfully request your consideration of our rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman. It's a question for staff. Have you seen the deed restrictions that have been proposed by Mr. Toledano to Mr. Toledano? So staff hasn't had a chance to review those to see if they agree with those restrictions at all yet.
We would not voice our opinion in that regards.
You wouldn't?
Would not, no.
That's not.
Now, the deed restriction would be in favor of the subdivision, not the parish. So we wouldn't have any standing in a deed restriction. It's something we can take into consideration, but that'll be done at the council level.
Correct?
I would advise that the commission not take into consideration any deed restrictions because the parish is not a party to those restrictions and would not be enforcing them. So you all should consider the land use and the rezoning application, but not any private deed restrictions.
Okay, because my concern being is the open fields that are right next to the homes there. And I assume that's the concern area there of possible future expansion. Am I safe to say?
Correct.
So
what you're looking in the back, it's all tennis courts.
Okay. So we don't consider the deed restriction at all, so it's like it doesn't exist to us. Okay, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Morone, I see a line of trees or some sort of buffer, it seems, between the development in question and the housing. What is that? Is that a buffer? Is that just a tree line?
There is a buffer that was created between on the subdivision side, I believe, when Meadowbrook was put in. And so what you're seeing on the aerial on those trees is that buffer. If you go to in your packet, the Kelly McHugh plan, you can see that strip, that buffer strip that I think you're referring to where the trees are. You see?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're seeing on the aerial, that buffer strip which was established when Meadowbrook was put in.
Okay. So there's no roadway or anything in there. It's a tree buffer.
That's correct. Okay. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a motion to approve. I understand that we're concerned about that buffer in the upzoning, but in reality, this is a conforming use issue. I don't have a problem with it. If Councilman Toledano can negotiate something between the neighbors, that's great. But for our purposes, I'd like to move to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And I had a question for legal, so that I have it. The deed restriction would just simply put it on the property, so that if it was sold at some point in time under the HC2A zoning, nothing else or nothing that is in the deed restriction could be built on that property?
That's correct, but Parish does not enforce those deed
Right.
restrictions, so I
Right.
would caution the commission against considering that and making its decision.
Okay, thank you.
Who seconded the motion? Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Seeger,
Yay.
Rest,
No.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie,
Yay.
Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes?
Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Right, thank you. All right, we have items 13 and 14, which 13 is a change in zoning and 14 is creating a PUD. We'll hear them together and vote separately. Okay, 2020-1816-ZC, existing zoning is A3. Proposed zoning is A4, single-family residential. Location is parcels located on the west side of Carroll Road, south of Devon Drive, and north of Valcoast. I can't say it. Car? Slidell, Ward 9, District 12. It's 47.43 acres. CTB Development, LLC, Kyle Branton is the petitioner. Owner is Linwood Ennis, and the council district is 12. And on 2020-1817 ZC, existing zoning is A4. Proposed zoning is A4 with a PUD overlay. Parcel located on the west side of Carroll Road, south of Devon Drive, north of Valca Street, Ward 9, District 12, 47.3 acres. It's CKB Development LLC, Kyle Branton, and the owner is Linwood Ennis. Council district is 12. Staff?
The petitioner has submitted two applications, the first of which is to rezone the property from A3 to A4 single-family residential. The second petition is to rezone the property from A4 to the planned unit development overlay. The property is 47.43 acres, and the Bayou Bend subdivision is proposed to be developed with 140 lots with an average lot size of 50 by 120. The site is proposed to be accessed through a one boulevard type entrance, which will extend from Carroll Road. The proposal is for 140 lots, which does meet the PUD requirements and the maximum allowable density of the requested A4 single-family residential designation. However, it does almost double the number of units permitted under the existing A3 zoning designation. Per the UDC, any PUD is required to provide a minimum of 25% of open green space, which this PUD proposal does meet. As previously stated, the proposed PUD does meet some of the objectives of the PUD and the future land use plan. However, staff is not in favor of the request due to the significant increase in density in the residential subdivision.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent CKB Development, LLC, the proposed purchaser and developer of this tract. I appreciate the opportunity to present this PUD development to you. We have prepared some additional data that is coming to you via Mr. Richard as we speak, and we ask that you take this data into consideration. I'm going to review that data with you, but I would like to go over initially the basics that have just been provided to you in the staff report. This approximate 47.42 acre parcel located on Carroll Road south of US Highway 190 is a unique parcel. It is really a parcel that has previously been cut over, now has certainly some overgrowth, if you will, and some trees. But we believe that the PUD design that we have suggested and developed for this tract will make it a very interesting and also very compatible component to the neighborhoods that are in this area. Firstly, we have suggested that the zoning, underlying zoning be changed from the existing A3 to A4. And if you look at some of the information that I've provided you, and in particular this colored map that has the red on it, I'd like you to take a look at that with me as we discuss the zoning in the area. We disagree with the assessment that staff has made with regard to the compatibility of a proposed change to A4 underlying zoning. In fact, if you look at the zoning exhibit that we provided you, you will see that we've used the color red to emphasize the existence of current A4 in this region. Please note that directly across the street from the entrance to our subdivision is a tract that's at least double in size to ours that is currently zoned A4. And interestingly, there is a smaller tract to the south along Bayou Liberty Road. There's Huntwig Village, which is the tract to the north of us, A4, and also a tract that's a little out of the area, if you will, on the north side of 190, zoned A4. Also, please note that there is some existing NC zoning that is not noted in the staff report that actually abuts our tract on the north side along Carroll Road. So why do we need the A4 zoning? We need the A4 zoning because we have a density zoning scheme in the Unified Development Zone, and the A4 zoning allows us then to achieve a sufficient number of units to provide the infrastructure and amenities that we think make this subdivision very progressive and also very compatible. The A4 zoning will allow us to have 140 units, and now if you will look at the second colored exhibit that I provided you, it's got the subdivision plan, and it shows you the green space and the pond amenity area. Why did we give you this exhibit, and what is significant? I think it's very significant that this PUD, or land use plan, includes a series of 5 ponds, all of which will interconnect and provide not only a very important drainage component, because ultimate disposal will be to the south and west, but equally important, these ponds will provide very nice aesthetics when you enter the subdivision, obviously along Carroll Road, but also provide recreational opportunity for the people that live in the subdivision. So we think a very important and distinguishing characteristic of the development that we propose by U-Bend is that the use of the green space, it's 17.8 of the 47.42 acres. 37% of this site is dedicated to some form of green or open space, nearly all of which will be available for use in some form of recreation. Now, as you know, the recreation plan is not developed and provided to you until the project comes to you in the preliminary subdivision stage. But as you can see from the configuration that we've provided, we have plans and opportunities to provide park areas in both of the residential sectors, to provide the opportunity for pedestrian walkways, jogging trails, etc., at least around some of the ponds. And we also intend to encourage the use of the water surface itself. These will be wet ponds, and there's no reason that these ponds can't be used from the banks for fishing, for kayaking, and things of that nature. So we believe that the development plan, this PUD, is very consistent with the environment as it is today, and in fact will make the residential use highly compatible. As you know, a subdivision that comes through your process also provides some other amenities or advantages that the other tracts in this area do not currently have. What are some of those features? Well, for one, this property will clearly provide the open space, the green space that I discussed earlier that is not available in the other neighborhoods. This development will also make sure that post-development runoff rate will be at least 25% less than the current pre-development runoff rate. It is also, I think, important to note that this development will have a central sewer and water system. The water is definitely going to come from the Liberty Water Company. The sewage is likely to be a plant that we will put on site, but we hope, of course, and are still striving as we go through the engineering stage, the preliminary subdivision stage, to see if we can engage with a utility provider that's in the region or in the area. I guess the other point that we would make with regard to the plan is that we tried to give a lot of consideration. If you look at the configuration of the lots and the use of the cul-de-sacs, particularly in the front, we tried to create neighborhood settings so that these parcels, as you will, they're pods of approximately 10 to 12 lots that are on some of the northerly or north-south run streets that will create a sense of neighborhood for those people that live in that particular area. So in sum, it's our belief that the requested change of the underlying zoning from A3 to A4 is justified when you look at the amenities or the possibilities that provides this PUD. If we want to judge the A4 as it relates to existing land use and zoning in the area, I hope that many of you have ridden the area, because if you have, you will see that most of the residential homes in that area are on small parcels. And I would suggest to you that the size of this development, 140 lots, will not create any undue pressures as it relates to impacts on any of the people in that area, and in fact will be very compatible. The amenities and advantages that the PUD brings to the project and to the area are again those that I have stated previously, but maybe the least of which is the opportunity to have a continuation of central sewer and water, which is a very important environmental concern, the opportunity to reduce post-development runoff as opposed to pre-development runoff. In that regard, I think you would be interested to know that this tract contains no wetlands, which is very unusual to find a tract of this size and in that area. That delineation has been completed and has been submitted to the Corps for the issuance of a JD, and that's certainly something that you will see again when the subdivision comes to you later in the process. We realize that the development of this subdivision will require efforts on our part as it relates to fill mitigation and the amount of fill that would be placed under slab homes. I have been here this evening and heard some of the discussion in prior cases, and I'm aware that this commission in general has concerns, and rightfully so, with regard to the safety and well-being of not only the people in this subdivision, but the people in the surrounding area and the impacts that will be created. So my point is that we understand what the hot button topics are. We would like to have an opportunity to get this land use approved, and that will of course propel us to do the specific studies so that when we come back to you for preliminary subdivision review, we will be able to present detailed plans as it relates to fill, as it relates to traffic, as it relates to drainage, as it relates to road construction, as it relates to utilities and facilities, and perhaps most importantly, as it relates to recreation amenities, so that the people and children of this subdivision will be able to enjoy and recreate on site and not necessarily be compelled to leave the site to do so. This is all of my remarks at this time. I will wait to see if there's a need for rebuttal, but at any point during the evening, if any of you have any questions, I will be glad to address them at that time. Thank you much.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor on this item? Anyone wish to speak against?
In favor of, what is this gentleman for, against?
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Mike Sims.
Just a minute, Mike.
We got 1 minute left on the floor.
Sir?
You're wanting to speak for or against, sir?
For, on behalf. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any financial interest in it. The only thing I own is a little shopping center next door to the property. And I like the idea that another little residential area will be coming into that area. I think the last time we had anything was when we built Huntwick Village. That's, to my knowledge, the last properties that were residential properties were coming in there. Some of the interest that I have is to make sure that the drainage is done right. Not that I have a big piece of land that would bother it, but it does run back almost to Bayou Liberty, and I noticed his design it was drained back to Bayou Liberty, so I think that's one of the first subdivisions that they put that actually drain into that bayou. So we want to make sure that stays pristine. The whole area consists of homes that have been built between 20, 30, 40 years ago. I don't know when Huntwick Village was built, but it was probably in the 70s, 80s, something like that.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a good addition to the community.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Mr. Sims.
You're welcome.
All right. Sir, you were coming up to speak for or against? Against? Okay, we'll go over to the against. Please fill out a speaker card.
Put it on the
Speaker card's right there.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name is Kevin McDonald, 35075 Oak Ridge Avenue.
Good evening.
Sir?
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Mr. Daughter?
Fine.
Council. I beg to differ a little bit with Mr. Shane. It's hard to go speak behind him and Mr. Marone. They're so elegant. I can't match up to that. But I've lived on the 55 acres adjoining Vioscas to the south. Vioscas is the first one south. It's a narrow, long piece that goes to the bayou. Everybody refers to it as a Viosca Street. It's actually their driveway, but they've never lived there. I've lived on 55 acres adjoining that to the south of it my whole life. This property actually drains through Vioscas onto my property. In 2016, we acquired the property next to the other 57 acres that was a Beal property. It continues through there all the way to Jefferson and cuts across. I can't take any more water. My ditch coming through my property is probably 4 to 6 feet deep. It overflows down. And I know this is not a thing about drainage, it's about zoning, but I can't take anymore. I wish you'd consider the density that they're requesting and think real hard about approving.
All right.
I don't have anything else to say, but thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You want to speak? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Sharon Newton, 35140 Garden Drive. So Garden Drive runs right next to the property that's being done. It's not so much that I worry about the houses being built, it's the increase in the density. It's quite a bit down there. And it does already, we have water problems to begin with. But the other thing that a couple of years ago we had, Bayou Liberty itself was designated a scenic byway, and I didn't think that any more water was allowed to drain into there legally. So when I read that it was going to drain and go on into Bayou Liberty, I think it should be really noted that I don't think that that's allowed. I'm not sure, I don't know all the legality about it, but I do know that our two representatives in the state made sure that that was designated as such just for this challenge, that we don't want the bayou, any kind of pollution and any extra water that we would have going in there. So that's one of my biggest things, protecting Bayou Liberty. And the other part was Carroll Road is already busy, so an extra 70 houses really would be a big challenge there. So traffic would be a big problem that I just know as a parish we need to make sure that that's taken care of and that's considered. So I don't oppose the housing, I just think the density is way much more than what it should be permitted in that area.
Thank you, ma'am. You need to get a speaker card, okay?
I got it. Yeah, thanks, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jeannie Stangl. My husband, Dr. Eno Foster Hebert, and I bought our place on Bayou Liberty at 59385 Neslo Road, Slidell, in 1984. For 20, 30 years, I've been standing in front of you all asking for lower density housing, not higher density. Driving and meeting the school bus on these roads, Carroll Road, Liberty, Garden Drive. My children attended Bayou Woods Elementary and Carolyn Park Middle School adjacent to this proposed PUD. And the ditches are so deep, the pavement so narrow, it's scary to think of a high-density development. Jeff Shane's talking about children playing. I fear for their safety because I drive this area every day. The Tammany Trace bike trail, we've brought it in from Camp Salmon on Garden Drive adjacent to that area. And in order to get the roadways are so narrow that they had to turn the mailboxes vertically because there was no other room. I oppose it for drainage, for sewage, and traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
Kirk.
My name is Jerry Hart. I live on Devon Drive. I'm 59 years old. That means I've lived there about 50 years. Been there long enough to know that the correct pronunciation is Devon, and it turned into Devon over the years. But for the last 24 years, I have been an underground utility locator in this area. I go umpteen times, who knows, hundreds of times, to every subdivision when it's built. From the start to go, there's just no counting how many times I'll end up. I've spent the last few years, all these subdivisions, like from Madisonville, going through Beatico, Springfield, Hammond, Ponchatoula. The one thing they all have in common is it's kind of parcels out in the middle of nowhere, out in the middle of nowhere. There's not really any other places around here. That's what separates this one from that one. The one thing they all have in common is after they clear the trees, they bring in countless amount of fill. That's just the way it is. That's what will happen. Devon Drive has never flooded except a few inches during Katrina. It didn't flood in the May 95 flood. Elevations certainly have changed since my house was built in 1957. I don't know what the elevation of my house is, but certainly we were grandfathered in, and over time, elevations have the minimum elevations of houses have certainly went up. I don't know how they could possibly say they won't flood Devon Drive. I've seen it too many times. It's the gravity. It is what it is. So anyway, that's what I have. Besides all the extra traffic and all that, I appreciate him saying our area needs the new anemones, but I disagree with that too. But it's just impossible for him to say we won't get flooded. The woods behind my house will be a house, and it will be noticeably higher than my yard. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a speaker card there. If you'll fill it out and turn it in, I would appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, sir. Got 3 minutes?
I'll make it quick. My name's Terry Hart. I also live on Devon Drive at a separate address. I live directly adjacent to this piece of property. I would challenge anybody with some thick nerves to try to ride a bicycle down Carroll Road and not fear for your life, for the traffic that goes down there. Vehicles constantly clip their mirrors because the road is so narrow. The ditches are deep. It floods. Let your kid walk to school and see how fearful you would be whether they return or not. It's a dangerous place. The woods, the 47 acres, it may not be considered wetland, but I've hunted and played in it all my life, my entire life. I today feed deer, coyotes, and bobcat 200 feet behind my house. There's no room for anything else to go. To see deer in this area and the wildlife is because there's simply no other land around for them to go. And to clear this, what is going to happen to all of that? What's going to be the buffer between Devon Drive and all of this property? The back of my house is this land.
Okay, thank you.
And where's the water going to go?
All right. Yes, sir. You wanted to speak? Probably got, about a minute and a half?
Minute and a half. Plus rebuttal time.
My name is Diamond Forcade. I live at 35320 Garden Drive. My fence would back up to this property. And my house is old and it's like this. It's low on the ground. If they come and develop this, they're going to flood me out. I've never been flooded besides Katrina. But this one, like they say, they got so much wildlife back there and stuff, and there's no drainage. Are they going to put an 8-foot fence behind the property to buffer? They're going to put drainage behind, in between my lot and that piece of property if they put slab houses? And they're going to put these little bitty 50-foot lots? Well, if they're going to develop, at least develop something decent, not this. This is what like they come in there, clear cut everything, they take everything out of here, throw in a bunch of little HUD houses. In about 10 years, it'll be HUD houses. It'll be financial houses. So I really hope y'all would go against this. I really don't want this in my backyard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you get a speaker card turned in? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Seeing no one, we'll go to rebuttal. Mr. Shane.
I respect the comments that were made by the residents. I respectfully disagree with most of those comments that are made, but I'll stand on record to say that I think, if not all, nearly all of those questions will have definitive answers when this project comes to you during preliminary subdivision review. I think first and foremost, I know you as a commission understand this. I understand why those that don't attend these meetings regularly may not appreciate the fact this is a land use hearing to determine whether or not the proposed underlying zoning change and the proposed PUD would be an appropriate and compatible land use. The concepts or issues raised with regard to traffic, to drainage, are very appropriate. It's just that tonight the studies aren't available and you're not being asked to make those calls. I don't want to neglect those comments, though. I think that they deserve some rebuttal. I don't live out there, but like most cases I take where I anticipate the comments that I'm going to get from the residents, I make more than one trip. And I made that last trip on Sunday of this week. And I would respectfully suggest that Carroll Road is in pretty good shape for being a parish road. And I believe that it is adequate, but I believe that Carroll Road, both its dimensions, its quality, and its capacity to handle the cars that come from this development will clearly be tested in the traffic impact analysis that we will be required to provide. With regard to the drainage issue, again, take a look at the PUD plan. I know that you have. We have designed 5 wet detention ponds that we know will cut the rate of runoff by 25%. That doesn't mean it's not important to measure the volume of water and where it's going to go and whether it's going to unfairly or unduly impact people in the area. But again, until we have that study and until your engineering department has a chance to review it and make recommendations to you, is it really fair to make the land use decision based on issues that have not been studied, have not been presented to you, and from which you have no commentary from your staff? We simply want the opportunity to do those things. As it relates to the green space and the size of these lots, let me again emphasize that 37% of this tract is in some form of open or green space. That is 150% of the requirement mandated by the PUD. The lot sizes are not that far off of the lot sizes that you would find in many of the residential areas that are in this vicinity. I've looked at some of those titles to check that myself in terms of the dimensions. I believe that the combinations of central surge and water, of regulated drainage, of a traffic study that are going to give us hard results that we can measure, and the opportunity to provide new and nice homes for people to move in this area are very important considerations for you tonight, when the only legal issue before you this evening, with all due respect, is the appropriateness of the land use. We can't do this development reasonably with the existing A3 because of the amount of infrastructure that is needed as it relates to drainage and the length of the streets. We simply can't generate enough units to make it economically feasible. That's not a statement of greed, that's a statement of reality, and it's one that you hear from time to time, because there are a certain number of units that are needed to support an economic model, but to bring a development into an area that has these state-of-the-art type infrastructure, meaning that it will have the benefit of current code, whereas much of the residential area does not have the benefit of the current code. And it's not those people's fault. It's just that these are older properties that were developed at times when the standards were less than they were today. I've always felt that at the land use hearing, it's important for you to determine if in fact it is a reasonable plan and can it be compatible. I believe that it's not only reasonable, but I think if you continue to look at that zoning map, and please look long and hard at that color red that's all over that map, if that's not at least reasonably suggestive of compatibility, I don't know what is. I also believe that the impacts of a development are not so much measured this evening at the zoning hearing, but more so measured when you sit as a planning commission and we come back to you for preliminary. I'm not suggesting it's inappropriate for the people to make the comments, for you to ask the questions, or for me to make commentary about those impacts. But I am suggesting that in terms of the final decision, the final analysis, shouldn't it be measured at the time when the most precise studies have been presented and when your expertise, your staff, has reviewed those studies and give you recommendations in that regard.
I believe you time's up.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Kevin, does your group have any rebuttal? Would like to speak in a rebuttal?
In reference to green space, all these retention ponds, I don't think are considered green space because kids sure can't play in retention ponds. So there's a lot that's set aside for retention ponds and as opposed to green space. So even though it's a lot of it, it's not where the kids can go play. That's all, looking on the map.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in rebuttal? Yes, sir. Got to get up to the mic. We're going to get you exercise tonight.
They talk about green space, but if you look at it, they're gonna clear every tree off the whole facility. It'll be cleared, nothing. Then they're gonna come back and put in houses. Where's your trees? Where's your green space at? Where's the rural part of the subdivision? That's just clearing a bunch of land and throwing in a bunch of houses. So it's not rural, it shouldn't be. You know, our lots are at least 100 foot. My lots are 100 by 440. I mean, if they could break their lots into little lots like that, I should be able to break mine into put me 10 houses down one side of my lot. You know, so they can do it, I should be able to do it too.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in rebuttal from the against side? I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Any of the commissioners wish to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Kurt?
I use this road quite a bit, and I use it during the week and on the weekends when schools are open and when they're closed. So I know this road and this area very well. And yes, I do believe the roads are tight. I have seen school buses trying to pass each other, and slowly going about it. If you're trying to cross from one side of Carroll Road to the other side of Carroll Road, there are many a times you have to just sit there and wait until you can rush through an opening. There are ditches. It is close to the Tammany Trace, which was fought for a long time, and I hate to see that disappear. And yes, we do have red here. And I don't want this map to become all red, and I don't think it needs any more red, because we've talked as a commission off on the sides, drinking our sodas or our beer or our Cokes or whatever we drink, saying that we have been pushing things tighter and tighter just to fill in areas. And I'm tired of filling in areas and making things tighter. So I'm totally against this. I don't think we need to cram anything else into an area. We need to leave some space that's supposed to be there that God put there, and I'm totally against it. So I make a motion we deny.
Neil?
I also think that, and I appreciate Mr. Shane's comments, but just because a property cannot support the infrastructure, perhaps the land use should be something totally different than a subdivision. Just the configuration of the property, so long and narrow, to have such a high density of lots, it doesn't even seem safe. And I agree, I don't think it's appropriate for this area. Yes, that's a second.
Okay. All right. Anyone else the commissioners wish to speak? All right. I'm gonna call for a vote. We have to vote on these separately. The first one is 2020-1816 ZC. This changes the zoning from A3 to A4. if it passes. Do I hear a motion?
We have a motion to deny and a second.
Motion to deny and we
I
have a
make a
second.
motion to deny. I second it too.
Okay. All right. Let's call for the vote.
Seeger,
I don't understand. Are we combining them as one vote, or
No.
which one are we
No,
voting
it'll
on
be
now?
two votes, Tom. This is
1816.
just changing the zoning, and then we'll go to the
Nay.
PUD.
So you
so
don't want to make
the motion is to deny.
Right.
No.
So we have a motion to deny, you say no.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie, Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Fitzmaurice,
No.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
No.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to deny carries.
What's the vote total?
9 to, what is it? 2 nay. Fitzmaurice and Randolph. When you finish.
There were 3 nays.
What was the vote? I'm sorry.
9-2 is what I got.
All right, well, there might be a discrepancy. Let's, just raise your hands if you were in favor of the denial.
In favor of the denial?
Yeah, just so we can do a count.
Favor of denial.
Drum.
No, so you voted to, no, you
I
voted no.
voted no.
Meaning you did not want the denial.
Correct.
Okay, so you were in favor of the zoning change.
Yes.
Okay. So that's 1. You got it down? Let's be clear. Okay, hands up if you voted no.
If you voted no?
We had 2 noes. Who was the other no? Ron?
You voted no.
1, 2, 3. But yes,
Okay.
thank you.
There's 3 no's. It's confusing when they do it.
Right,
Right.
motion to deny passes.
So
Now,
it's 8-3 to pass.
3, not 2. Okay.
Okay. Then the next one is the
That
PUD.
changes the PUD.
It's 2020-18-17 ZC. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to deny.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Drum. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
For a motion to deny, Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie, Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Fitzmaurice,
No.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
No.
Barcelona.
Yes.
So it's 9-2, correct? Two against?
So the motion on the PUD fails.
Motion to deny carries.
Okay? All right, Mr. Shane and Mr. Morone have
Mr. Chairman, you have a question from the floor? No.
I can't hear you, Bill. No, the motion to approve the PUD. Right,
It
right.
correct.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
Motion to approve, but we have to somehow have a mechanism to say, okay, I'm against this, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and put it forth that I
Yeah.
It's confusing.
All right, we're gonna skip to item 16. Mr. Morone, I believe you've got this one, is that correct?
We're gonna pass over 15?
Yeah. Jeff's gonna come back and, he and Paul made an agreement. Staff, you got comments?
You want to read?
Oh, I guess I ought to do that, huh? All right, item 16 is EC 01-03-028, major amendment to a PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay, parcel located at the northwest corner of intersection of I-12 and Louisiana 1088, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 5 and 7. It's 161 acres. The petitioner is Jones Fussell LLP, Paul Marone. Owner is the ASBE Fund, Council Districts 5 and 7. And we're going to have an extension on this. Mr. Fitzmaurice is going to abstain. Staff?
The applicant is requesting a major amendment to the Wadsworth PUD to add a transportation terminal and warehouse distribution center to the list of permitted uses for parcel 2, 3, 4, and 5. The applicant is also requesting to alter the previously approved green space to move the 2.85 acre 50-foot buffer along the interstate on-ramp and provide the required green space along all other property lines. The site's comprehensive plan designation calls for the area to be developed with a mix of commercial uses at varying densities. The proposed development meets the comprehensive plan by proposing a variety of commercial and industrial uses and open space. Staff does not object to the request.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the ASBE Fund. You have before you what I would characterize as a minor major amendment to this PUD. As you all are aware, this is the PUD that is in the northwest quadrant of 1088 and I-12. Two requests. One is to add 2 additional uses, permitted uses to the PUD. That's a transportation terminal and warehouse and distribution centers. My clients have had some interested parties look at it and inquire about the property, and were they to decide on the property, they were interested in these uses. So we believe that these uses would be appropriate and compatible in this area and with this PUD, so we would ask for your consideration of amending to allow those as permitted uses. Also, we're asking to reconfigure the green space, or a portion of the green space. Currently, there is about a 50-foot green space belt that runs along the property line where it meets the interstate on-ramp. And there is already some green space on the interstate side of that, so we're asking to relocate that to the other areas of the property, including the northern property line and the western property line. With that relocation, we'll actually have a little bit more green space than we have on the strip that we're relocating. So it's a net win, although slightly, and we believe that these 2 uses are certainly compatible in this location. And for this PUD, we'd respectfully request your approval of the major amendment to address each of those 2 issues. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Good evening.
Carlo Hernandez. You know, it's interesting that I believe I was there at the when the sign went up for this, and the sign did not last very long. I think later in the day, I saw the sign now on the stick, and the following day, the sign was gone. Following that, the sign, the stick was gone. So I think the sign lasted less than a day. And I guess I've been speaking about this proposal, and I'm curious, Mr. Fitzmaurice is involved, I think, as a principal to this, and I guess he's, I don't know, didn't say anything about not being.
He started off by saying he wouldn't participate.
I'm sorry?
The chairman said he would not participate.
Right.
Okay. All right. But he's still sitting there, which is interesting. Many times the person leaves the area, but apparently he's sitting there now on this. The proposal to, when one looks online for this, was very difficult to decipher as to what was the parcels that were being spoken about online. When you read the map here, which I was fortunate enough to get a copy of that, then it became clear which parcels were being proposed. If you go online, it's not clear as to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and what the total number of parcels were involved with this. The green space is interesting because they made such a big point about the green space when it was first proposed, saying that this 50-foot green space that was being proposed was, and it made such a big deal about it. But now it's now being done away with. I guess it's obviously very clear to me that the green space is not as important as it once was. The transportation terminal and the warehouse and distribution center, it's interesting that those of us who have been dealing with this for a while now, it's difficult to describe the land use plan. The land use plan, I think, it's unique in terms of how it was proposed. It was unique because it was no comparable to this. The land use that was described by them was, I guess it was, and I wish the plan that's being suggested here is very simplistic in terms of what was being proposed in the land use plan. The land use plan had, and I wish someone would describe to me anyway what is being described here, because the land use plan is unique in the sense of there is no description in this proposal as to what the land use plan was on this. And I guess those of us who have been dealing with this for many years had a great deal of difficulty understanding what the land use plan was that was being described in 2000 and whatever the year was that it was being described, because it was not described in a way that it was simple for people to understand what it was that was being proposed. And I tell you, those of us who have been dealing with land use plans for a long time had a great deal of difficulty understanding what was being done here. And I'm wondering, those of you who looked at this, I'm wondering how it was that you understand what it was that was being proposed. The other thing too is, of course, I don't know what the square footage is that's being proposed for these two changes on here, and I'm wondering what these changes are in terms of square footage that's being allowed now on this. Let's just say that I for one, we've been dealing with this, and I think you know me, and have been coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a long time. And if I don't understand something, then I think there's some question as to why this is being proposed. And I would request that, at the very least, that this proposal be deferred for at least a month. And I would, for one, love to hear what is being proposed in terms of the square footage for this, what the maximums is involved with this. And apparently there's only one of the three parcels that's not involved with this change. And I guess I'd like to know if that's the case, then what is the maximum being allowed for the two uses that are being proposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Let's go to rebuttal, Mr. Morone.
Thank you. I'm as confused as Mr. Hernandez is. I thought all we were doing was adding 2 uses to the permitted usage list and reconfiguring 2.85 acres, 85 acres of green space to 2.90 acres of green space. We're not proposing to change anything else about this project. We're not changing any other uses. We're not changing anything else that was previously approved years ago. All we're changing is we're adding 2 permitted uses, and whatever the ordinance in place says as far as the maximum size of those, that's what we'll abide by. We're not proposing any modification to that. We're just saying that on this site, on these tracks, that a transportation terminal, warehouse and distribution centers are permitted. Nothing more, nothing less. Also, we're saying that right now, there's a 50-foot green space that runs along the entrance ramp to the interstate that's 2.85 acres. We're going to relocate that to other portions of the property so that there is 2.90 acres of green space that is accounted for. That's all we're doing. The confusion, I'm confused about Mr. Hernandez's confusion, I guess is the best way to say it. And I can't answer that confusion because I don't really understand it. To me, the request is very simple and very straightforward. I believe these uses would be consistent and compatible in this location, and I don't believe that the modification or rearrangement of the green space materially changes anything with regards to the project. I wasn't involved when the project was approved many, many years ago, but I would tell you that at least standing here today, having passed that site for 10 years, 15 years, which we all have, we're all familiar with it, I'm not sure that that 50-foot green space in that location along the entrance ramp to the interstate is that significant. In fact, as I sit here now and I think about the times I've driven by it, I don't know that I've ever noticed there was a green space there, to be honest with you. So I don't believe that these changes are that material, but they do warrant a major amendment, which is why we're here this evening. I would respectfully request your consideration and approval. There is no reason, I don't believe, to table the case. I don't know what I could come back and tell you next month that I'm not telling you now. So we respectfully request your approval, but most importantly, a decision tonight, one way or the other. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez.
Well, I think that it's a little unfair, I believe. I just wish that someone, and I think that someone is a commission member, would describe what the changes were that that now are being made. Let me tell you, I have attended every one of these meetings for many years, and I understand land use. And let me to say that what was being proposed here is not a significant change is just not a fair statement, I believe. I think that those of us who've been attending these meetings for all these years, it's not fair to describe this this change or changes as not being unique. I mean, let me tell you, and I wish I could bring up because I was unable to bring up the previous changes that were made. I was unable to do that, and I wish that any of you commission members could bring up and describe to me what these were, because I'm telling you, I could not bring it up, and it would be difficult for any other except one commission member, I think, to describe what these changes were, because let me tell you, these were very unique in the sense that the changes that were made were all quite unique in the sense of the description of these changes. These were not, and I wish they could be made right here to tell me, to show me what these were. I wish I could explain it, and obviously I'm having difficulty because it's not easy to describe what these changes were on here, and I'm telling you that these were very. I'm trying to think how I could describe them very easily, but I can't describe them very easily. And those of us, and I've been dealing with land use changes for decades. Before coming into St. Tammany, which I've been here a long time now, and the description for these were, and there were a few of you who have been here a number of years, and I can tell you that I, for one, was having a great deal of difficulty understanding what these changes were, because it was not a simple description on here, and I just wish you'd give me an opportunity to come back and try a better description of what was being proposed here, because I, for one, who understand land uses a great deal and have been dealing with it a long time, have a great deal of difficulty understanding what the changes were. And let me tell you, it's not like it's these two. And I guess I wish I had the original proposal that was made here, and I don't have the original proposal that was made here, and I wish that someone could explain it to me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We've heard for and against. We've heard rebuttal. So I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take a shot. First of all, Mr. Hernandez is talking about the changes, and I'm not certain. I know he's trying to get it straight, but what we're being presented with tonight, the parcel sizes haven't changed. The configuration hasn't changed. There's two things that have changed that Mr. Marone said, and I'm going to ask a question on it, but it really was to add transportation terminal and warehouse and distribution center to the permitted lists for parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what I understand is, when this was originally put together, instead of having just a zoning that had permitted uses for anything, they had a list of what could be done. And for personally, I can't believe that warehouse and distribution center wasn't already on it. I mean, we keep talking about, oh, we've got to move another facility that's off of Oshna Boulevard to a place like this, and now we're saying we can't have that? This is exactly what it's supposed to be. Now, I don't know why there's a lot of confusion. My other question was, well, tell me about the green space. Why do we have to move green space around? Well, it turns out that DOTD, when they put the entrance ramp on, actually created green space that was redundant to this green space, so it was just moved to another spot. That's the simple explanation. I don't think 3 acres or 2-point-some-odd acres, regardless, on a tract this size, is material. And it sounds like we're going to keep that green space just configured differently. This doesn't appear to be that complicated to me. Maybe I'm missing something, but until somebody can tell me otherwise, I move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Rushard.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Randolph.
We got a question down here from Mr.
I have a question. My concern being, when this area was originally developed, we didn't have a high school down the road. Okay, we have Lakeshore Hospital, or high school down the road now. And when you start talking transportation trucking center and a high school and school buses and kids coming in and out of a school area right down the road there, I got a little concerns about that because I'm not sure what you mean when you say a transportation. Is that 18-wheelers shooting down 1088 and going up to 36? Or is that, what is it exactly we're doing there that when you add a transportation facility, I just not sure what you're asking for?
Sure. It is a broad category. It is a category that exists in the Unified Development Code now. So it could be anything from a logistics type facility, which certainly could have 18-wheelers coming in and out. That is definitely a possibility. But the likelihood of 18-wheelers going north from this location, certainly possible, but that would be remote. The location in this instance would be primarily of interest to facilities like that because of the proximity to the interstate, to be able to jump on that on and off ramp right there and utilize the interstate system. It's possible they would go north, but it's hard to imagine why that would be, at least today.
I mean, even at that, there's a heavy school traffic coming to the south out of Lakeshore High School towards the interstate to be met up with this. So, I mean, I think there's not much description here to tell me what I'm voting for. As far as what you're asking for, in theory, it doesn't bother me a whole lot. But not knowing, because of the location of the high school and a lot of kids driving and school buses running along there, I think it's reason for concern, at least.
I understand, and I would just end by saying that we were looking for uses within the development code that could fit this. So that's where these uses came from. They were already identified in the development code. And then with regards to the traffic, the school is well to the north, and you will be hard pressed to find a less driven highway than Highway 1088 in St. Tammany Parish. There are very few cases I can tell you don't have a traffic problem. You don't have a traffic problem at 1088 right now.
Not on the north side.
Not on the north side.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marone.
Any further questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I have to agree with Mr. Hernandez. I was pretty confused by the maps, and I had to contact staff to get geo-referenced, I should say. And I talked with Helen, and I got copies of the changes in the maps in 2014. But just to be sure I understand, how many parcels are there in the PUD?
As far as I know, there are 5.
Because Helen, when you and I talked, there were like 40 or something. It was a huge number of parcels that we were looking at.
I think that the plan that we looked at today was from the previous.
Well, it was, but
major amendment to the PUD.
The map that we were given, the parcels were not clear.
Correct, but some parcels have been combined or maybe reconfigured since then.
Can somebody show me a parcel map, show me the parcels we're talking about?
I think if you look in your packet, it's in the packet, but it's with the next case.
It's just, do you have it, Paul? How many acres are we talking about?
This is the packet we have.
Let's see, so one of the parcels is 92 acres.
There's a total of 161.
Yeah, there's a total of 161. The parcels are 92, 22 acres, 10 acres, 26 acres,
I've gotten
5.6 acres, and I think that's it.
mixed up here. This is the whole PUD then? So we're talking for the entire site. We're adding these uses.
No, that's not correct. It's only for parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Where's 4 and 5? There's 2 and 3. And do we know how many acres that is?
32, so parcel 2 is 22.7 acres. Parcel 3 is 10 acres. Parcel 4 is 5.6 acres, and parcel 5 is 26.2 acres.
Okay. Yeah, this map would have been helpful online. That was what I was using, was online. As I understand, the transportation terminal, it could be a truck stop.
I think so. I think that is one
I
of the
looked up
uses.
the definitions, and that included it.
I believe so.
That's a pretty significant change. One of my issues is the receiving waters for this project is Bayou Castine, which, as we all, or most of us know, eventually makes its way down to Pelican Park, to the North Lake Nature Center.
Right next door.
Yes, right next door.
Right next door.
No, that way, I think.
You might be right.
It's that way.
You might be right about that.
And it goes through some units of the newly created Cane Bayou Wetland Mitigation Bank, and then eventually into Lake Pontchartrain. So how is the water quality going to be ensured if you have gas pumps and trucks, a truck stop?
Well, nothing in this proposal will address that, right? Because just like with any gas station around St. Tammany Parish or any other use, there are existing regulations both at the parish level and at the state level that would mandate how that construction would have to take place and what would be required. And so those requirements are going to be in place on this project. If a facility that has gas pumps or uses of that nature were to be realized here, whether it's a transportation terminal or a gas station, which is already permitted, then those requirements are going to be applicable. Nothing in our proposal will change that, of course. We're just adding the permitted uses that we're talking about. The PUD wouldn't regulate those issues. Those issues would be regulated through the other ordinances here locally, and then at the state level through DEQ.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional
Ready to
questions?
vote?
I don't know. Anybody else want to add any questions? We have a motion and a second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Please vote.
Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
No.
Willie, Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Fitzmaurice,
Abstain.
pardon me?
He abstained.
I have to abstain.
Okay. Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back and pick up item 15, which is 2020-1818-ZC. Existing zonings A4, single-family residential, and NC2, retail service district. The proposed zoning is I1 industrial district, parcel located on the north side of US 190, west of Henderson Drive, east of Thompson Road, being farm lot 511 of Forest Glen Subdivision in Lacombe. Ward 7, District 7, it's 2.96 acres. The petitioner is Cameron Clessy. Owner is Winston D. Chavret, and it's Council District 7. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan designates the site to be developed with commercial uses at various densities. The subject site consists of 2.96 acres, and the applicant is proposing to rezone the split lot, which is currently zoned A4 and NC4, to I1 industrial. The surrounding lots mimic the split zone lot with the current zoning designation, and the site is flanked by properties with the same designations as petition property. A change in zoning to the requested I1 industrial district would allow for more intensive uses. As such, staff objects to the request.
Mr. Shank.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair and Honorable Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fusel Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, and I represent the petitioner, Mr. Cameron Clessy, who owns the business of Clessy Foundations. We come to you this evening asking you to consider the rezoning of this tract, partially zoned NC, partially zoned A4, to I1, which would allow Mr. Clessy to put his foundation repair business at this particular location. In part, we were encouraged to come to this location because of zoning that was provided to a tract just to the west. If you look at the documents in the folder that I've provided to you, you will see that the top document indicates our subject property, which is only partially shown, but it's got a star in it. It's on the right-hand side and on the northern side of 190. But if you'll see to the west, there is a parcel that was zoned I1 in 2019. It's a 1-acre parcel. So we do believe that there is some I1 certainly in the vicinity. That I1 site, I might add, appears to me to be barren of any buffers. It has a chain link fence around it, and it's completely limestone. There's no use that's being made of that property as of this time. So when we got interested in this particular parcel, what did we do? First thing we did was we went to the neighbors in the surrounding area abutting the property to see if anyone had a problem with what we had in mind, and we had no one that had an opposition. We also went to your former commissioner, now Councilman Jimmy Davis, because obviously this is his council district, and we wanted to present to him the possibility of moving this business into his district at this location. And he showed a real interest, depending, of course, on how we set the site up, and of course, certainly how the residents in the area would feel about this possibility. So in that regard, I ask you to take a look at the site plan that I provided you in the packet. Your eyes probably aren't old like mine, but the larger site plan might be a little easier to view some of the details than the one that you got in your packet. Farm 511 is approximate 5-acre parcel. We do not seek to rezone the entirety of that parcel. In fact, as the staff report notes, we're only asking to rezone 2.96 acres. Why so? It's because we wanted to try to create as much buffer and preserve as much existing zoning around the perimeter of the site as possible to make sure that this use would not be incompatible with the other property owners in that area. So if we start in the front along Highway 190, notice that the first 70 feet of depth remains the current NC2 zone. And notice that within that 70 feet, the front 35 feet along Highway 190 is going to be dedicated green space. Then when you look at the line that is 70 feet into the site, that's where the I-1 zoning would begin. And it continues, of course, due north for distances as shown on the drawing. Around the perimeter, you'll see that we've included a 25-foot green space inside the property lines. You'll also notice that we've noted that we would have a 7-foot high metal opaque fence that would surround the entire, all 4 sides of this 2.96 acres. The property would consist of an approximate 10,000 square foot warehouse building with an office in the front. The loading ramp would be to the rear of the building, out of sight. To the extent that we would need to have parking or store outdoor equipment, things of that nature, it would all be to the rear. You'll see where we have noted on the northerly side of the site plan the aggregate drives and the parking area. So this was all done in mind to try to keep as much as possible out of eyes view from 190 and also out of eyes view and to not create any negative impacts as it relates to the residents or the neighbors on each side. I might add that on the west side, the property is undeveloped. You can probably see that in your staff report. On the east side, there's a residence there owned by Mr. Pierce, I think is the gentleman's name, Price, who again, as I said, we got with to make sure that he obviously did not have a problem with this application. Klesse Foundation, as you might imagine if you're not familiar with the business, they are one of the primary, if not, I guess, major foundation companies here on the North Shore. What do they do and how would that impact the use of this property? They essentially come and either raise foundations or fix foundations, and occasionally they're involved, of course, with the moving of structures. So the point is that this property will not have fabrication on site. It's not going to emit smoke, noise, things of that nature. There are no inherent building materials per se that need to be stored outside. So why do we need I-1 zoning? Why is that necessary? It's because of the outdoor storage of the equipment that's needed. As you might know, any of us that have ever been around or seen anyone that is moving a structure or raising a structure, there's lots of very sophisticated equipment, all of which would not necessarily be stored inside. So for that reason, we need the I-1 zoning, and it would, again, those outdoor storage issues would be all to the rear of the property. I think it's also interesting to note that if we want to look at what's going on in this area, take a look at the zoning vicinity map, and as staff points out, there is a large sector of HC3 right across the street. And just listening to the discussions of this evening by this commission and knowing that all of you are very familiar with the uses that can be made in HC3, I would only suggest to you that the eventual use and development of that property is likely to create more impacts to the area than the proposed development of this 2.96 acres. I'm not suggesting the HC3 will be unconscionable or unfair. I'm only saying that if you look at the size of it, and if you look at the intensity of the uses that can be made in HC3, I think, quite frankly, that it's more likely to be an impactful use. I don't know who is here this evening to speak in favor or against this case, but I will tell you that I believe that a lot of this idea has spread throughout the neighborhood and has been vetted. Many of you that have been either on this commission or have certainly watched land use in this parish for many years know that this area has often brought out folks when they had concerns about the uses that were to be made on the highway. Let's talk about the deed restriction and why it's enclosed in your packet. I understand a legal counsel statement made earlier this evening in that she did not believe that you could consider the deed restriction. I don't believe that your motion certainly can depend on the presence or absence of the deed restriction, but I wanted you to know that Councilman Davis requested that we place a deed restriction on the property that would eliminate many of the uses in I-1 and also 2 other uses that are not in I-1. So that's why I've included in your packet an illustration of the uses that are available in I-1 and the deed restriction, which on page 2 indicates the 6 uses that will not be allowed on this site and would require the unanimous consent of all adjoining properties in that area if we were ever to amend. It's not to suggest that it's a document that involves the parish or that would be enforceable by you, but I do think it has some interest to let you know that we're not trying to open Pandora's box and place a property into I-1 that could have unlimited use. I might add that the 1 acre piece that was owned I-1 by this commission and council in 2019 does not have a deed restriction. I'm not being critical of that. I'm only saying that all uses are available at that site. In this particular instance, there's only a few stated uses that would be available, and primarily what we will be doing is the warehouse with the office and the outdoor storage. And we've tried to protect those uses with buffers, with fencing, and also with keeping existing zoning to the front and existing A4, about 2 acres of A4 to the rear, in hopes that this will be a good fit. When looking at this land use plan this evening and considering this case, we hope that you give Plessy Foundation an opportunity to make this location its new home. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this case? Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shane, I have a quick question for you. Familiar with the I-1 and the previous zoning that we did down the street. I-1 in some cases is fairly benign as far as an industrial classification goes, so I don't really have a problem with that. But the question I have is on the proposed building. Do you know what height we would be talking about on that building? Approximately?
Nothing more than 30 feet and probably something less than that.
Okay, so.
But nothing more than 30 is the expectation.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, what would be inside the building? What would the building be storing or used
I'm sure equipment, I'm sure parts, a variety of supplies and inventory that would assist probably these straps, a variety of things that are used in connection with the business.
Okay. And all the storage is planned to take place in the rear of the building?
Yes, sir. And really, it would only be storage of equipment that's not reasonably, stored in the building. But that's correct, everything to the rear.
I'm familiar with the area. I'm familiar with this property. I live in Lacombe. I don't see this as an incompatible use, especially being set back from the road and with the appropriate buffering that y'all have put in place. So with that, I would move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie,
Yay.
Richard,
Yes.
Yes.
Doherty, Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
Motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, we've done 16, so we'll go to 17. Is EC 01-11-072, a major amendment to a PUD Plan Unit Development Overlay, parcel located on the north side of Oak Harbor Boulevard, east of I-10, being parcel P2-3, Slide L, Ward 9, District 13. It's 4.2934 acres. The petitioner's DSSI Slide L LLC, Doug Duran, and the owner is the same. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting a major amendment to the Lakeshore Villages PUD in order to allow for the site to be developed with a mini storage facility. To accommodate this zoning change, they're requesting to change the existing LE3 multi-unit residential, single-unit residential, and commercial to LV1 neighborhood commercial. Staff doesn't object to their request as the subject site is adjacent to an existing parking lot to the north and detention pond to the east and is located along boulevards to the west and south.
Thank you. Mr. Duran in the office? Please step up to the mic and state your name and fill out a speaker card.
Yes, sir. My name is John Lambertson. I work for Karuba Engineering. We're the designer and the applicant for this proposed project. What we're proposing is currently the property is zoned LE3, which allows multi-use residential, multi-unit residential, single-unit residential, and commercial, as Aaron just stated. And what we are proposing is to go to the LV1 neighborhood commercial. What we're proposing is a mini storage facility on the proposed site, and we have submitted design plans to the planning department and South Central Planning, all the applicable permit requirements, and to my understanding, as it sits now, we've met all of those requirements, so we're here respectfully requesting your approval for the proposed PUD amendment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I have a question.
Mr. Randolph.
Sir? John? Got a question.
So changing the zoning is basically you're reducing the number of residential or units that you would have had in the original plan.
So the purpose of the rezoning is the use. We're proposing a mini storage warehouse at this facility. So for some reason, it's not listed, this particular use is not listed in the commercial under the LE3, but it's under neighborhood commercial. So in order to accommodate the zoning, we wanted to make sure everything was lined up with respect to the zoning.
There's no other question by any other commissioners. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner
Second.
Randolph to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's just vote.
Seeger,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
McInnes,
Yes.
Willie,
Yay.
Richard,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Barcelona.
Yes.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. Is there any old business? Any new business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
y'all, and we will see you tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow.
5:30 at 4:30.